Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. So we finally got all the Ascendancies for the classes in Path of Exile 2. Before we get into that, which I do have all the information for you, the Twitch drops are going to be scheduled for launch. And these are the items. I'm going to go ahead and play this in the background for you guys because you can see the items. I am Twitch affiliated, so if you do watch my Twitch stream while I am streaming Path of Exile, you can get access to these items. First one is, of course, this Halo, which is pretty neat. Or sorry, yeah, the Halo. The Halo, the Righteous Helmet attachment, which is pretty cool, and the Energizing Bolt Flask. They're both pretty neat. There's also going to be the Temporal Lord's Portal, which is December 14th to the 21st. And there's also this pretty cool Chimera pet, which you do have to gift 2 Twitch subs for, which if you give 2 Twitch subs to me, that also works. And honestly, these are all really cool. You can get pretty much all of these for free, except for the pets. That's the only one that's not technically free. All the rest of them are technically free. Moving on, we do have the Ascendancies. So there are quite a few Ascendancies here. And we'll start off with the Sorceress. The Sorceress. So the Sorceress Stormweaver. And we got some crazy things. We're going to open these up in like a new tab so I can like move over and we will like pull them up. So number 1, Scattering Winds is exposure. You inflict exposure you inflict lowers the affected resistance by an additional 20%. That's really nice. Obviously, lowering the resistance of the monster means that they take more damage, which is always going to be a good thing. Definitely very, very, very good there. Tempest Caller grants skill Elemental Storm. Trigger Elemental Storm on critical hit with spells. Elemental Storm creates a stationary fire, cold, or lightning storm at the target location for a duration based on the highest elemental damage type for the hit that triggered the storm. Hits which do not deal elemental damage will not trigger the storm. Rain Dancer. Elemental Storm has 150% more cooldown recovery rates. Heavy Snows. Target can be affected by 2 or more of your chills at the same time. Your chills can reduce action speed by up to a maximum of 35%, 25% less magnitude of your chill you inflict. Shaper of Winter. All damage from hits contributes to chill magnitude, which, I mean, chill magnitude is definitely going to be helpful for kiting, keeping away from monsters, which it's not like the Sorceress has a tank, like an off tank, although you could potentially get one of like the witch summons or something. Strike twice. Targets can be affected by 2 of your shock skills at the same time, 50% less shock duration. Shaper of Storms. All damage from hits contributes to shock chance. Constant Gale. You have Arcane Surge. Arcane Surge states, Arcane Surge grants 10% more cast speed and 20% more mana regeneration. Then we also have Force of Will, which is 1% increased area of effect of Arcane Surge on your 1% increased area of effect of Arcane Surge on you per 15 maximum mana. And then finally we have Heart of the Storm, which I'm kind of in the way for, unfortunately, but we can work around it. 1% increased. No, that's the other one. 40% elemental damage taken recouped as energy shield. Interesting. So that one allows you to be a lot tankier. And as you can see here, we also have the actual panel, so it shows you in what order they are. And the link to these will be in the description for you guys so that you can pull these up anytime you want to and take a look at them. It is right here. It's on the official Path of Exile webpage on the forums. So you can take a look at these anytime you want. Let's take a look at the Chronomancer next. So the Chronomancer is Now and Again. Skills have a 33% chance to not consume cooldown when used. Unbound Encore grants skill Time Snap. Manipulates time, resetting the cooldowns of your other skills. Ultimate Cooldown grants Time Freeze. Releases a large wave that stops time for all affected enemies for a duration. Duration is lower the more times the enemy has had time stopped for them. Duration is lower. So the more times you stop an enemy, the lower the duration is. Okay, that's interesting. Footprints in the Sand grants skill Temporal Rift. Passively leaves after images of your recent past. Cast the spell to return to the oldest after image, teleporting to that location and resetting your life, mana, and energy shield to the values they had at that time. This one seems pretty powerful, allowing you to just like backpedal. Like you could literally, obviously, spend all your mana, like end up almost dead, press the button, boom, you're back to when you were before you obviously lost all your mana and you were almost dead, and you just instantly heal and get all your mana back, and you can just do it all over again. Sounds pretty amazing. Quicksand Hourglass. Every 12 seconds, gain 50% more cast speed for 4 seconds. Apex of the Moment. Enemies in your presence are slowed by 20%. Ooh, sorry, I just got off night shift. I'm over here yawning. 30% of damage taken recouped as life. Circular Heartbeat. The Rapid River recoup effects instead occur over 4 seconds. So it turns the recoup effects into a 4-second heal. It's not bad. And as you can see, it also shows you the order in which these work, which is pretty cool. I'm assuming that you start here. So any of this stuff, like for instance, you would have to go 6, 1, 2. I wonder... I'm assuming 5 is this one, the 6 is this one. Actually, I don't know which one is which. I guess these right here, the smaller nodes, are not listed. Only the larger nodes are listed. I mean, I'm assuming the smaller nodes only do like small things, because obviously that's how the node system works. But so it doesn't look like they're listing the smaller nodes. Like for instance, in this case, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8, 9, 10. There's like 10 small nodes in here, along with the 10 nodes on this particular character. Okay, so the next one is going to be the Warrior. So this one is called Titan, and I think I could do it like this. Probably work even better that way. I can get myself out of the way. Yeah, there we go. That's not bad. We can zoom in on what we need to. So the first one is Stone Skin, 50% more armor from equipped body armor, which is huge. This is Titan, by the way. Not sure if I said that. Massive amounts of increased armor. Ancestral Empowerment. Every second slam skill you use yourself is ancestrally boosted, and we have Ancestral Boost over here. So ancestrally boosted is an ancestrally boosted skill has 20% more damage and area of effect. Number 2 is Earthbreaker. 20% chance for slam skills you use yourself to cause aftershocks. Aftershocks are bursts of area damage that occur after the initial impact of the skill causing them. If not otherwise specified, the aftershock will deal the same damage as the initial impact in the same area. Colossal Capacity, carrying a chest which adds 20 inventory slots. Hulking Form, 50% increased effect of small passive skills. Crushing Impacts, your hits are crushing blows. Crushing blows cause a heavy stun on enemies that are primed for stun. As far as I understand it, heavy stuns are basically a double roll, if I remember correctly, which is basically where it rolls like 2 dice essentially, or 2 rolls or 2 damage rolls, and then it takes the better of the 2. So like for instance, if normally you would attack and it would just roll once and it would be whatever you get is whatever you get, but with heavy stun, if I remember correctly, it's 2 attacks. And it goes, okay, that one's 500, this one's 750, and then it takes the larger of the 2, which ends up being a much higher damage output. I think, if I'm not 100% sure. Surprising Strength, 40% more damage against heavy stunned enemies. Mysterious Lineage, 15% more maximum life. And then there's a bunch of like things here besides that. So there's primed for stun. Normal enemies are primed for stun when they have at least 40% heavy stun buildup. Magic enemies are instead primed at 60% buildup, rare at 70, and unique at 80. Heavy stun. Hitting an enemy builds toward a heavy stun based on the damage dealt. Different enemies have different heavy stun thresholds and durations with a very large Monsters having a high heavy stun threshold, players cannot be heavy stunned. While the enemy is heavy stunned, they cannot act and can count as immobilized. Physical damage and melee damage each cause 50% more heavy stun buildup, and these bonuses are multiplicative with each other. I mean, there it is right there, right? Maybe I was thinking about a different mechanic. Let's move on to the next one. So the next one is Warbringer. Warbringer is, let's open this in another tab too. I like opening them in another tab. Warbringer is the other ascendancy for warrior. And this one is Anvil's Weight for the first one. Break armor equal to 10% of hit damage dealt. Breaking armor, of course, is going to reduce the armor of the monster, which, of course, reduces the resistance that they have to hits, which is going to increase your physical damage. Imploding impacts, you can break enemy armor to below 0. Very interesting. I'm assuming that breaking an enemy's armor below 0, of course, is kind of like how in Diablo 2 you could bring a monster's resistance below 0. So at 0%, they would take full damage, but at negative 10%, they would take 10% extra damage on top of your normal amount. So that is going to increase your physical damage past its normal value. Jade Heritage. Grants skill Encase in Jade. Gain a stack of Jade every second. Encase in Jade. Spell. Consumes all stacks of Jade to grant a buff for a duration that absorbs all damage from hits, up to a maximum based on the amount of Jade consumed. While encased, you cannot move or perform actions. So just like immortality, but only while you are... But you can't move or do anything? Huh. Answered Call. Grants skill Ancestral Spirits. Trigger Ancestral Spirits when you summon a totem. Ancestral Spirits minion. Each of your totems will summon an Ancestral Spirit minion to fight for you. If the totem that summoned the minion dies, then the Ancestral Spirit dies too. Wooden Wall. 20% of damage from hits is taken from your nearest totem's life before you. Renly's Training. Gain 40% base chance to block from equipped shield instead of the shield's value. Turtle Charm. 35% less block chance. Can block damage from all hits while shield is not raised. Oh, interesting. Warcaller's Bellow. Corpses in your presence explode when you warcry, dealing 25% of their life as physical damage. And then Great Wolf's Howl. Ignore Warcry cooldowns. Why does Warcry's Bellow just sound like Corpse Explosion with extra steps? Which I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I like Corpse Explosion. Next on the list is the Ranger. Deadeye. So let's take a look at Deadeye. Number 1, Avidity. 30% chance that if you would gain frenzy charges, you instead gain up to your maximum number of frenzy charges. That's pretty crazy. Thrilling Chase. There's also a buff that can like churn your frenzy charges into other things. It's on the passive tree. I can't remember what it's called right off the top of my head, but it converts like your frenzy charges into something else, your endurance charges into something else, your power charges into something else, and so forth and so on. So I imagine you could probably utilize this with that to convert your frenzy charges into a different form of charge as well, and then gain maximum charges. Thrilling Chase. Benefits from consuming frenzy charges for your skills have 50% chance to be doubled. You have no accuracy penalty at distance for Eagle Eyes. That's one of the new things that's in PoE 2 that's not in PoE 1. They added an accuracy penalty on distance. So if you're really far away, there's like a penalty for being far away from the monster. So it looks like they just don't have to deal with that. Point blank projectile deals 20% more hits damage to target if the first 3.5 meters of their movement scaling down with distance traveled to reach 0% after 7 meters. Projectiles deal 20% more hits damage. Why does it say hits damage? It's such an awkward way of saying it. To targets in the first 3.5 meters of their movement. Interesting. So in other words, point blank would probably give that away. So it means like the closer they are to you, the more damage you do. And then the further away they are, the less damage you do, I would guess. Far shot projectiles deal 0% more hits to targets in the first 3.5 meters of their movement, scaling up with distance traveled to 20% after 7 meters. So they're basically in opposition with each other. One is close up fighting, and one is far away fighting. So it's just bonuses depending on how you would prefer to fight. And they seem to be like linked together too, so you get to choose. Endless munitions, skills fire additional projectiles, always nice. Cold shots, you can apply an additional mark. I mean, having more than one mark is good. Gathering winds, gain tailwind on skill use, lose all tailwind when hit. Tailwind is a stacking buff which grants 1% increased movement speed, 3% increased skill speed, and 15% increased evasion rating per stack for 10 seconds. Refreshing whenever you gain another stack, maximum 10 stacks. And then finally, Wind Ward. 3% less damage taken per tailwind. Okay. And then next on the Ranger is the Pathfinder. The Pathfinder's got that crazy one with like 5A, 5B, 5C, 5D, 5E. Of course, you got it just because you're choosing a potion. Concocted Chemistry. 50% more flash charges gained. Enduring elixirs. Life flask effects are not removed when unreserved life is filled. Life flask effects do not queue. Contagious Contamination. The most damaging poison on enemies you kill is spread to other enemies within 1.5 meters. That's pretty amazing. Overwhelming Toxicity. Double the number of poisons you can inflict on enemies. 35% less poison duration. I never like less poison duration. I always want more poison duration. I want my poison to last until their kid's first birthday. Like I want my poison to last until Jesus comes back again. Like that's like my poison needs to still be on the target after they're dead. Like they get to heaven and they're walking into the pearly gates and then they fall down dead in heaven like as they're crossing the barrier into heaven. Like that I want my poison to last that long. I've never really enjoyed less duration poisons. I always want more duration poisons. I want my poison literally to last until Jesus come back the second time, okay? Brew concoction, poisonous concoction attack. So these are all the brews. Let's zoom in on these brews. So choosing one of these brews, I mean, it seems pretty clear that the poison one is specifically poison damage, which, by the way, is chaos resistance for some reason, which is really stupid. But yeah, get used to it. Poison is chaos. Fulminating concoction is lightning, of course. It also inflicts lightning exposure, which is really cool. Lightning exposure, of course, is probably going to reduce lightning resistance, or at least that's how I remember reading it. I don't see the poisonous concoction reducing chaos resistance, though. It says poison inflicted by this skill has more effect, but consume charges from your mana flask to throw a bottle that explodes unarmed cold attack damage area, inflicting cold exposure, which is also probably going to reduce cold resistance. Explosive concoction, consume charges from your mana flask to throw a bottle that explodes and dealing fire damage and lowers fire resistance. And then finally we get bleeding concoction, which consumes charges from mana flask and throws a physical attack damage, because bleeding is physical. Bleeding inflicted by the skill has more effect. So the two dots, the poison damage one and the bleeding one, just simply get bigger effects. But the lightning, cold, and fire actually get fire exposure, cold exposure, and lightning exposure, which seem pretty powerful if you're running those directions. Traveler's Wisdom is gain 5 passive skill points, so just 5 more points you can spend on the tree. 7, Running Assault is 30% less movement speed penalty when using skills while moving, so you're going to be able to use your skills while moving more. Relentless Pursuit, your speed is unaffected by slows, basically giving you the ability to just move around with ease. This one seems to be more based around these flasks, throwing the flask, getting the fire exposure, the cold exposure, etc. Poisons. So it looks like this tree is really set up for, honestly, like elemental damage, poisons, dots, bleeds, essentially, like things that are going to work into like your build elementally. Next we have the Witch. The first one is the Blood Mage. This one is really interesting for a lot of people. I've heard some people talking about this one. First off, we have Sanguimancy, which is grants skill life remnants. Skills gain a base life cost equal to base mana cost. Drinks the blood of your enemies to restore your life. While active, enemies you kill have a chance to spawn a life remnant, and critically hitting a target spawns a life remnant every few seconds. Picking up a life remnant grants you life, which can overflow maximum life. It kind of sounds a lot like blood orbs from Diablo 4 from the Necromancer, which is ironic because this is a Necromancer, right? Basically, has skeletons and everything, and minions and like mages and stuff, just like the Necromancer from D2. Vitality Siphon, 10% of spell damage leached as life. That's pretty nice. Open Sores. Your curses have infinite duration. Well, that's really nice. Blood Barbs gain 10% of damage as extra physical damage. Elemental damage also contributes to bleeding magnitude. That's pretty neat. Gore Spike. 1% increased critical damage bonus per 40 life. So that's a nice scaling buff, which obviously is going to scale based on your life. Sunder the Flesh base critical hit chance for spells is 15%. Grasping Wounds, 25% of life loss from hits is prevented. Then that much life is lost over 4 seconds instead. So a little bit of a mitigation there, which you can. That way you're not taking it all at once, but you still have to deal with it eventually. Gain Energy Shield from equipped body armor as extra maximum life. That's pretty nice. And let's move on to the next part of the list, which is the Infernalist. There's a lot of really small writing on this one. We're going to zoom in. Altered Flesh, 20% of cold damage taken as fire, 20% of lightning damage taken as fire, 20% of physical damage taken as chaos damage. That's really interesting. Isn't there a node that literally makes you immune to chaos damage, which would then also technically, well, it wouldn't make you immune to physical, but it would make you immune to 20% of physical damage. Baydot's Gaze reserves 25% of life, +1 to maximum mana per 6 maximum life. +1 to mana per 6 maximum life. Okay, so the more maximum life you have, the more mana you get. But it also reserves 25% of your life. This one's kind of cool. I was actually thinking about this one because, like, anytime you take cold damage, if it's a big hit, then that's a 20% reduction from cold damage. And I would assume that that stacks on top of, like, any other resistance, right? So instead of you taking all cold damage, now you're taking cold damage and fire damage. And depending on how you set your character up, I mean, I'm assuming that there are ways to make your character immune to specific elements, like there is a way to make yourself immune to chaos damage, for instance. So, like in this particular case, cold and lightning would just get reduced by 20% in those situations if you could somehow make yourself immune or mostly immune to fire. Who knows? Baydet's Will. Reserve 25% of life. Another 25% of your life reserved. +1 maximum spirit per 25 maximum life. Well, that would be good for minion witches, because you need spirit for your summons, and the more spirit you have, the better. Baydet's Hand, reserve 25% maximum life, +1 to maximum energy shield per 8 maximum life. A lot of, that's a lot. That's like, if not that you would get all 3 of these, but if you did get all 3 of these, what's that, 75% of your life gone, and all you have is 25% of your life left? I don't even know if you can. What is that, 2, 3, 4? Yeah, 2, 3, 4. They're all in different sections. I think you get a total of 8 points. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So no, you wouldn't have enough to grab all 3, no matter what. Demonic Possession grants the skill Demon Form. Shapeshift into a demon, vastly boosting the power of your spells. You gain Demon Flame every second you remain in demon form, causing your life to be lost at an ever-increasing rate. Revert to human form if you reach 1 life. Use a skill that isn't a spell or a reactivate this skill. Revert to human form if you reach 1 life. Use a skill that isn't a spell or reactivate this skill. Okay, so if you fall to 1 life, you lose it. If you use a skill that is not a spell, you lose it. And if you press the button again by accident, you immediately deactivate the spell, which will also reactivate the spell because you're refreshing the timer. Master Darkness, maximum 10 Demon Flame. What is Demon Flame? I'm guessing that has something to do with the demonic possession. Where's number 5 on the tree? It's right here, and number 6 is right here. So I would assume that those are linked together since one is behind the other. So probably something to do with the demon form. Because you gain demon flame every second you remain in demon form, right? So this gives you a increase to your maximum demon flame of 10. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because it says causing your life to be lost at an ever-increasing rate. So wouldn't increasing the maximum mean that you would increase the rate at which you would be losing life? Pyromantic Pact. Maximum mana is replaced by maximum infernal flame. Gain Infernal Flame instead of spending mana for all skill costs. Take maximum life and energy shield as fire damage. So there you go. So as I talked about earlier, like see, you get the 20% cold and the 20% lightning being converted to fire. So here we go. We've got take maximum life and energy shield as fire damage when Infernal Flame reaches maximum. Lose all Infernal Flame on reaching maximum Infernal Flame. 10% of Infernal Flame lost per second if none was gained in the past 2 seconds. So gain Infernal Flame. Take maximum life energy shield as fire damage. I mean, it seems like everything's pointing toward fire damage, I guess is what I'm saying, right? So, like, they're taking 20% of your cold, pointing it to fire. They're taking 20% of your lightning, pointing it to fire, right? And then here it says, take maximum life and energy shield as fire damage when Infernal Flame reaches maximum. So we got a lot of things pointing toward fire. I think there's another one down here too, which seems like this is, kind of leaning you in the direction of, hey, like trying to make yourself immune to fire for that particular duration. This is Mr. Doohan, by the way. He's a biter. He bit me. That's right. I'm gonna tell on you. Put a scar on my fingers. On my fingers. I can't remember which one it's on. But you're mean. You ain't gonna get nothing but knuckums. You're gonna get knuckle sandwiches. Next. Bringer Flame. While not on low internal flame, all damage from you and allies in your presence contributes to ignite chance and magnitude. While high on Eternal Flame, you and your allies in your presence gain 20% of damage as fire damage. That's pretty cool. So just fire damage added to everything. Loyal Hellhound grants the skill Summon Infernal Hound. 20% of damage from hits taken is taken from your Hellhound's life before you. Definitely very nice. Summoning a reviving Infernal Hound, which ignites enemies near it. The Hound takes a portion of damage from hits for you. Grinning Immolation. Become ignited when you deal critical hit, taking 15% of your life and energy shield as fire damage per second, 30% more critical damage bonus. It's a really interesting looking setup, and I'm sure that the minutia of it is lost on me because I don't actually have it in my hands to play with it. But I can definitely see that they're funneling all the damage that you have into fire damage for some reason, and even the physical damage being converted into chaos is probably significant. I'm trying to figure out exactly I mean, is there somewhere in here and I'm missing it that you're basically immune to fire? I don't see anything of that type. The demon form itself doesn't mention anything about making you immune to fire or fire healing you or something along those lines. I mean, it could be something that you obtain outside the tree. I'm not entirely sure. It's definitely a really interesting setup, though. Very, very intricate. Next is the Witchhunter. I'm actually planning on playing the Mercenary this season or this launch, so I'm interested in this one. I'm gonna have to take a strong look at these. Weapon Master, 20 passive points to become weapon set skill points. Pitiless Killer, Culling Strike. Culling Strike kills normal enemies if their life is at 30% or below. Magic enemies are instead killed at 20%, rare at 10%, and unique at 5%. These thresholds are checked before the damage of the hit is applied. Decimating Strike. Hits against full life enemies remove between 5% and 30% life before the damage of the hit is applied. Concentration. Enemies have less cooldown recovery the lower their concentration, scaling down to 50% less. Cooldown recovery rate when concentration is at 0. So we've got Judge, Jury, and Executioner is the Decimating Strike, which we just read. That thing seems insane. Just a flat 30%. They showed it on a boss in one of the clips, and the boss just took 30% of his life. Just gone. I was like, oh, okay. Witchbane. Enemies have maximum concentration equal to 40% of their maximum life. Break enemy concentration on hit equal to 100% of damage dealt. Enemies regain 10% concentration every second if they haven't lost concentration in the past 5 seconds. So it seems like an interesting way to, like, a defensive mechanic to lower the cooldown rate of the monster and decrease the, general ability of the monster to spam their attacks, which is pretty cool. No Mercy, deal up to 30% more damage to enemies based on their missing concentration. So that's really nice. So stacking as much damage on the target as you can to get their concentration down to 0 gives you more damage. So that's nice. Obsessive Rituals grants skill sorcery ward. Sorry about that. Sorcery ward, 50% less armor and evasion rating. Sorcery ward passively manifests a protective barrier which takes elemental damage from hits for you until depleted. The barrier instantly recharges to its full value for a short time after it stops taking damage or is fully depleted. It's actually really nice. But it does reduce your armor by 50% and your evasion rating by 50%, so it's going to make you much weaker to have essentially elemental immunity almost. I'm assuming as long as you can run around a little bit until it recharges, you're pretty much immune to elemental damage at that point, which is fire, ice, lightning, and chaos damage, which would also include poison as well. And then the only thing you'd have to worry about is physical, which it takes 50% of your armor away, so that is an issue. Ceremonial Ablution. 50% increased effect of Sorcery Ward. Sorcery Ward recovers 50% faster. So if you were going with the Sorcery Ward, it seems like you're definitely going to want Ceremonial Ablution. Zealous Inquisition. 10% chance for enemies to kill to explode, dealing 100% of their maximum life as physical damage. Chance is doubled against undead and demons. It's always nice to make things explode. So the explosion is on 8. The sorcery ward is 7 and 6. So if you wanted to go down that route. I'm not entirely sure about Decimating Strike because it's only a... Well, actually, no, it's like guaranteed, isn't it? So it's hits against full life enemies remove between 5% and 30% life. So it'll always remove 5 to 30% from the monster on the first strike, which is kind of crazy. And that is 3. So you have to take Culling Strike to get access to that. Weapon Master seems pretty neat too, and it's only a 2-point investment. I like the Zealous Inquisition. So what do I do? Like one, we'll do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe, I don't know. I do like the concentration thing. That looks kind of neat too. The 4, 5. And that one might be even better than Sorcerer Ward. Sorcerer Ward seems complicated, like you might have to build around it. Let's go to Gemling Legionnaire. Now, this is the one that also interests me because of, like, It's almost like infinite like builds because you have so many different skill gems. Crystalline potential, 10% quality of all skills. So it beefs up the skills that you have in your gem slots. Um, implanted gems, +1 to level of all skills. Very nice. Advanced thaumaturgy, 30% less cost of skills. Skill gems have 30% more attribute requirements. So instead of costing more mana, or I wonder if that affects spirit as well, or if it just affects the mana cost. Integrated efficiency grants 3 additional skill slots. So you can like slot them into your flesh. You can use 2 copies of the same support gems in different skills. Oh, that is nice. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. You could have 2 multi shots. You could have 2 of a lot of things. There's a lot of nice, cool stuff you could put. Like support gems are only usable once in each, for like total, like in all your skills. So having the ability to use 2 copies of your support gems, me like it. Me like it a lot. I think that might have convinced me to go Gemling Legionnaire. Thaumaturgical Infusion, 1% cold resistance per 4 blue support gem socketed, 1% fire for reds, and 1% maximum for support gem for the greens. So you get some nice maximum resistances there. Adaptive capability, attribute requirements of gems can be satiated by your highest attribute. This is really cool for me because obviously when you're dealing with the gems, they're going to be either intelligence, dexterity, or strength, right? I think that's correct. Um, and obviously you don't want to like spread your points all out, especially if you're doing like multiple gems. So this would allow you to stack in one particular attribute without having to worry about fulfilling the requirements of all the gems, which is really neat. Enhanced effectiveness, inherent bonuses from intelligence, strength, and dexterity are doubled. That's pretty neat too. So that's another way to go. Like, it's kind of odd that they have these 2 tied together, though. I don't know. Like this one almost makes you think that you would do a different way of doing it, which is just simply fill the requirements of all the gems so you get all the stats. Of course, you could also go the exact opposite direction, which is like stacking a specific stat to make that damage go, let that particular stat be even higher, which is also a whole other way you could do it. And that's interesting. Seems to me like you might go, what, 7, 8? Probably, and most definitely 5, which means that you're going to take 4. So 4 or 5, which opens you up for 6 if you want to take 6. So that's already like 1, 2, 3, 4. So you still have 4 more points at that level. Of course, that's assuming that you get all 8 points. But that's only 4 points there. Or no, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, that's 8. So if you were to take 7, 8, and 4 and 5 together, I mean, that's a pretty strong setup right there. I do like the number 1 crystalline potential, though. That one is really nice as well. Honestly, that enhanced effectiveness looks really nice. It does look really nice. Being able to double your intelligence, strength, and dexterity bonuses. That's got a lot to think about now. Now the monk. So the Invoker. Let's do the Invoker first here. Lead me through grace. Gain 1 spirit for every 6 energy shield on equipped body armor. Gain 1 spirit for every 15 evasion rating on equipped body armor. Cannot gain spirit from equipment. Interesting. So it's encouraging you to stack either energy shield or evasion or both. Probably both. And protect me from harm. Evasion rating also grants physical damage reduction. 40% less evasion rating. Faith is a choice. Grants meditate. Meditate is channels to recharge energy shield. Can overcharge your energy shield up to double its normal maximum. Channeling ends when you take damage or your energy shield is doubled its normal maximum. This skill cannot be used if your energy shield is already double its normal maximum or you have no maximum energy shield. I am the Blizzard. Gain 10% of the damage as extra cold damage. On freezing enemies, create chilled ground. Chilled ground is nice. Extra cold damage is nice too. It's interesting too because it says extra. A lot of the times it's like converts 10% of your damage to cold damage. This is just saying you gain like 10% extra. I am the Thunder. Gain 10% damage as extra lightning. Same thing. 25% chance of shocking enemies and create a shocking ground. It's interesting because if you did both of these, if you did 4 and 5 together, which are kind of in the same place, right, leading to the same goal, you would have some pretty nice double elemental damage there, 10% cold and 10% lightning. And I shall rage grants skill Unbound Avatar. Gain Unbound Fury by inflicting elemental ailments with hits on enemies. Once you reach maximum Unbound Fury, consume it to become unbound for a duration, vastly augmenting your elemental prowess. The Soul Springs Eternal. Meta skills gain 35% more energy. Sunder my enemies, critical strikes, critical hits, ignore non-negative enemy monster elemental resistances. Non-negative? What? So if the monster doesn't have negative resistances, you just ignore them entirely if you critical hit. Does that mean they just go into the negative at that point? That sounds pretty powerful. Number 9, and scatter them to the winds. Grants elemental expression. Trigger elemental expression on melee critical hit. Elemental expression spell creates a fire explosion, an arcing bolt of lightning, or an icy wave of projectiles. The chance for an explosion is proportional to your strength, for a bolt proportional to your dexterity, and for a wave proportional to your intelligence. I'm assuming it's like alternating between them. Or maybe it's just going off of the one that you have the highest amount of. The chance for an explosion is proportional to your strength, dexterity, and intelligence. Okay, so I see what it's saying. So the chance of the explosion happening is basically directly based upon how much strength, dex, or intelligence you have. And if strength triggers it, you get the explosion. If dexterity triggers it, you get a bolt, and if intelligence triggers it, you get a wave. So depending on which way you're stacking your stats on this particular character, you're going to get a specific effect. It looks like you can probably get all of them, but you're more likely to get the one that you're stacking stats for. It's interesting. It definitely seems to be set up specifically as an elemental version. So you're going deep into the elemental version, and you're getting, obviously, negative elemental resistances, getting elemental damage. The ability to ignore non-negative enemy monster resistances sounds insane. I mean, I would assume you would always want to bring the monster down to negative resistances, but, it is what it is. Last but not least, the Acolyte of Chayula. The Acolyte of Chayula is a pretty popular one right now because it looks like it might have some, pretty crazy builds. We were talking about some on stream the other day. Let's go over it today. So first off, we have Ravenous Doubts, which is Mana Leech is instant, which is nice. Very nice. Number 2 is Consuming Questions. You cannot recharge Energy Shield. Mana Leech effects also recover Energy Shield. So this is this combination right here is actually part of one of the builds that people are throwing out, is that they're relying on the fact that Mana Leech, of course, recovers Energy Shield. And this makes it so that you can heal your energy shield relatively quickly. And in combination with a couple other effects, like having it so that your energy shield covers your life instead of your mana, or your mana instead of your life. And then your energy shield becomes your mana, as well as some other interesting things. It seems like you could make a very tanky build out of this. There's, like I said, there's already people talking about it all over the place. Chayula's Gift, 10% maximum chaos resistance. Chaos resistance is doubled, which is pretty powerful, but there is another aspect that literally makes you immune to chaos, which kind of makes this moot. Reality Rending. 23% chance to gain 25% of damage with hits as extra chaos damage. 13% chance to gain 50% of damage with hits as extra chaos damage, and 70% chance to gain 100% of damage with hits as extra chaos damage. Notice the word extra there, which means it's on top of probably your regular damage, and that's on position number 4 here, which is pretty easy to get to. That's boop boop. That's only 2 points. Walking Dream grants skill Into the Breach. Into the Breach skill states, creates a breach around you, allowing you to see nearby flames of Chayula. You are considered to be in a breach while this skill is active. Flame of Chayula. Collecting Flames of Chayula grants the following bonuses. Red Flames of Chayula leech 7% of your maximum life to you. Blue Flames of Chayula leech 7% of your maximum mana to you. Purple Flames of Chayula provide a stacking buff, granting 7% damage as chaos damage for 5 seconds and stacks up to 10 times. Lucid Dreaming. Effect and duration of Flames of Chayula on you is double. That's pretty neat. Embrace the Darkness. Remove all spirits. So this would prevent you from using like curses and stuff like that. Summons, etc. Base maximum darkness is 100. For each life or energy shield lost to damage, reserve 1 darkness instead, if possible. Darkness reservation lasts for 10 seconds, plus 5 maximum darkness per level. Grasp of the Void. Gained 1% damage reduction as extra chaos damage per 20 unreserved darkness. So this gives you basically a whole bunch more damage for stacking darkness. And how this works, of course, is for each life or energy shield lost to damage, reserve 1 darkness instead, if possible, right? So you get like this whole thing working around building darkness, getting more damage because of how much darkness you have. In this particular case, it reserves darkness when you take damage. So you want unreserved darkness to gain the damage. So for every 20 that you have, you gain 1% damage. The extra is chaos. It's like a whole little cycle there. And then Inner Silence is 50% reduced darkness reservation duration, which of course is going to make it easier for the reservations to fall off, which means you have more unreserved darkness, which of course is going to give you more damage. I mean, that's 7, 8, 9, which I'm assuming those are like in the same path. Yeah, they are. So that's 7, 8, and then 9. So if you were going this particular direction with the darkness build, you might want to grab all of them. Just simply because like that makes sense. Number 9 makes sense from this particular direction. Like if you're going with 8 and you want the extra damage from the unreserved darkness, 9 is just going to make it so that your unreserved darkness is more often unreserved and giving you the damage more often, so making it more likely that you're going to actually have it. Of course, it kind of depends on how much you get hit, because this is basically just saying that if you don't get hit, right, well then you don't lose any darkness, and if you don't lose any darkness, you don't lose any damage. So that's a whole nother thing. I think that's pretty much it. I mean, looking over all these, they're all pretty neat, and they all have some very interesting connotations for builds. The ones that I'm looking at right now, obviously, are the Mercenary, and I'm still trying to decide whether or not I want to go with the Witchhunter, or whether I want to go with the Gemling Legionnaire. I'm gonna be honest, the enhanced effectiveness, the adaptive capability, as well as the gem-studded number 5 really have me interested. So I think what I probably am going to do is I think I'm going to choose Gemling Legionnaire. I'm probably going to go 4, 5, and 7, 8. 4, 5, and 7, 8. I think that's where I'm looking. That's a pretty solid combo, I think. I do also like the number 1, which is the 10% quality of skills, but I'm not really sure what I want to give up for that. Like, if I go to 7, I might as well go to 8. I might as well. I definitely want 5. 5 is like a must-have for me, I think, because I want to have like 2 multi-shots. I want to have like 2 forks and stuff. I want to be like spamming shots all over the place like some sort of crazy person. Anyway, this video has already been 50 minutes. I do apologize about the duration. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos. I'm excited to hop into PoE 2 on December 6th with you guys. And as always, Be sure to hit that like button and the subscribe button if you enjoy the content, and